afternoon. Welcome back, everybody. It's good to see everybody. Yay! For those that don't know who I am, my name is Dennis Manzella, President of the Pro Football Hall of Fame Luncheon Club. Please silence your cell phones. On behalf of the Pro Football Hall of Fame and the Board of Directors of the Pro Football Hall of Fame Luncheon Club, I call to order the first meeting of the 62nd year of the Pro Football Hall of Fame Luncheon Club. Our invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, will be given by Pastor Roger Seibert, pastor of Central Presbyterian in Massillon.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, as we gather here today, we pause to acknowledge your presence. You are the giver of every good gift, and we thank you for the food before us, the company beside us, and the purpose that unites us. Bless our gathering. May our conversations be filled with grace and understanding. May the bonds of friendship deepen as we share this meal. And may our hearts be open to the inspiration our speaker brings. Guide our time together, illuminate our minds with wisdom, stir our hearts with compassion. Remind us of the privilege it is to fellowship together. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good to see you back.
Joining me today at the head table, I would like to introduce Doug Miller, our Vice President, and also Doug is a member of the National High School Baseball Coaches Association Hall of Fame. Doug, thank you. Pastor Roger Seibert. To my left, your right, my wife, Roseanne. Our speaker and a friend of the club, Jim Tressel, national champion football coach. And down in front, TJ Downing with SMG Network. At this time, I'd like to introduce our Board of Directors and Trustees for the 24-25 season. Our Vice President, Doug Miller. Secretary, Jim Lindensmith. Jim is in the back. Treasurer, Tim Richard. Our Financial Secretary, Wade Hostetler. Our Hall of Fame Board of Representative, R.J. Van Allman. I want to give a special shout out to R.J. for the amount of work that he does all year to provide us with our speakers. Thank you, R.J. Our directors, one-year term, Bill Costello, T.J. Downing, and Pete Coretta. Our directors for two-year term, Jim Evans, Nick Mazzacca, Becky Richard, and Frank Solano, ex-official. I'd like to recognize our club sponsors, All Care's Primetime Health Plan, Dr. Peter Ferguson, and the Marion Motley Memorial Scholarship Fund. Several announcements before we get to our speaker. First, congratulations to the Buckeyes for their second win. I cannot say that for the Browns. Also, we have a number of new members joining us this year, so I would like to ask all of our new members to please stand so we can recognize you. All of our new members. If you would like to introduce a speaker in the future, please see RJ and we'll get you set up. So if you want to introduce a speaker, please contact RJ. And the best way to be in touch with the club is to join the Hall of Fame Luncheon Club Facebook page. All club announcements will be on the club Facebook page. There'll be no emails, okay? No emails this year. So everything will be on the Facebook page. We do have, the speaker schedules are available in the back, and we're leaving some dates open so we can fill some slots in the future. And speaking of speakers, out of respect for our speakers, I'm going to ask, please refrain from talking while they are speaking so all our members can hear them and also hear the questions. Thank you. Just want to give you a little finance summary of the club. There's been no change to the annual membership dues. It remains at $40. Your membership includes free admission into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, 25% discount in the Hall of Fame retail store, free admission to regular season athletic events at Malone, Walsh, and Mount Union, along with, just show your membership card. The luncheon cost has gone up this year to $17. From each of the luncheon club from the fees, the club and Tozzis contributes equally $1 of the donation to the Hall of Fame to support special projects. Also, we're starting off September with a strong budget. From January 1st through August 31st of 2024, our income was $71,535.24. Expenses were $36,851.28, which leaves us a balance starting September at $34,683.96. So we're off to a good start. Also, if anyone is interested, we do have the booklets from the club. Gives you a history of the club, all the speakers that have been here over the last 62 years. They are for sale. They're $10 if anyone is interested. See Jim Lindesmith in the back. On a sad note, we've had a few deaths of our membership this year. Let's please give a moment of silence for our members who passed away over the summer, especially for Tim Miller, Ron Doherty, Jim Manigay, and James Boyer. Thank you. Raffle tickets. Let's do the raffle tickets, 50-50. Jim, would you like to make a friend?
Make a friend. One friend. One friend.
Okay. The winning jackpot is $256. Big one today. The winning number is 090789. 090789. Any winners? 090789. All right. Ozzy, up front. Congratulations. All right, Ozzy's coming up with money.
I told you. I know that 3 times.
Congratulations. Okay, something that I like to do each week is to provide you with a quote for the day. And this quote is from Herb Brooks. And he wrote, "Write your own book instead of reading someone else's book about success." Next week's speaker will be Dave Oates, Stark County Golf Hall of Fame, 7-time Stark County Amateur Golf Hall of Famer. And now to introduce our speaker, what a way to kick off our 62nd year. Our speaker needs no introductions. He has been here many times and is a friend of the club. It is my pleasure to welcome Coach Jim Tressel.
Thank you. Pastor Seibert, President Manzella, ladies and gentlemen, it's good to be back. The 62nd?
Yes, sir.
I've been to more than half of these. I'm at that stage in life. Well, as all of you were buzzing during lunch and so forth, talking about what's been going on since you were last together, and this being the kickoff luncheon of the year. Usually when I come back, because I've been here so many times, I think, well, I don't want to tell you about what happened 10 years ago or whatever, but kind of keep you tuned into what's going on. And so I'm officially retired, or maybe not officially, allegedly retired. But one of the things all of you know in retirement is you purge a little bit. So I brought a couple props here. I've never had props before. So my wife was telling me this morning, as she was telling me to clean out all my junk from my man cave or whatever, she found about 24 Maslin Tiger banquet glasses. And she said, well, we only have so many kids and grandkids, we'll save one each. So I brought a couple to give as door prizes, since you can't all win the 256, I'm sorry. And I thought, where's Bill Ridge?
Right here. He's back there.
Okay, pass this back to Bill Ridge. This is a 1956 Maslin Tiger banquet glass, my dad's picture on it, so Bill can have nightmares from when my dad coached him back at Baldwin Wallace. So pass that back to Bill for me, would you please? Okay. I gave Bill 56 because I only have 56 and 57. My dad only coached at Maslin those 2 years. And so Bill's the oldest guy I know here, so I gave him the 56. And he was the best player my dad ever had out of here. So I also thought it would be kind of fun for my dear friend Sloan, who I've been praying for some time. She hasn't been to half the number of these luncheons I've been to, but Sloan, how about one for you? Pass that to Sloan, okay? All right. This is 56 also. Wrigley, how old are you?
61.
I thought you were 56, but anyway. Dave Wrigley just got put into the North Canton Hall of Fame, so he should get a Maslin Tiger glass. So now I've got 3 from 1957. First one goes to T.J. Downing. He gave me 57 migraine headaches. There you go. All right. 58. Oh, 58? All right. Then I've got 2 more from 57. So was anyone born in 1957 from Maslin? No. Okay, well maybe there isn't anyone. Maslin born in 57. Right there? Okay, let's make sure he gets that. That's from the year you were born. No one else? Okay. You were born in 57? All right, pass that over. Okay. All right, good. I got my purging out of the way. How about a hand? And so people ask all the time, you know, what are you doing and so forth. And the best part of what I'm doing is having a chance to bump into my former players and see what things they have going on, whether they're charity golf outings or fundraisers or something with their businesses or whatever. And so that's been the best part. Is I'm sure some of you, just by the looks of this group, there's a couple retired people. I'm just guessing. But that's the best part, is you have a chance to get back with the people who have made a difference in your lives, and it's been so good seeing all of our former players. In fact, we were just on the radio with Dustin Fox. He just finished 13 years as a radio broadcaster on the Fan. I thought, 13 years? Shoot, I'm not old enough for him to have been 13 years on the radio already, but it's been so good to see so many of the guys and also work with so many of the former coaches that I've had. And what I've learned is I get more nervous about their games than I did about my own games. I don't know what it is. And you know, watching the scores and getting the phone calls, counseling, mentoring, supporting, whatever. It's been so much fun, and again, being available to have a chance to do that. I've had a chance to get down to Ohio State and spend time with Ryan and his staff, and you know, they're really going to be good, and not only are they talented, they're very talented, but you can tell they're on a mission, and that it's a tight-knit group, and just first-class kids, and it's been fun to get to know him more, and you know, be an ear for him and so forth, and I had a chance to be down at the Ohio State Akron game, two of my old schools, having a chance, and I was standing in the end zone, and Coach Moorhead came out, and full disclosure, I had scarlet and gray on, and Coach Moorhead said, "Well, I thought you'd have blue and gold on." I said, "Well, it's their home game." What am I going to say? But to have a chance to get with folks like that and spend time talking to Luke Fickle up at Wisconsin, and Marcus had a tough one at Notre Dame this past week, but that's the craziness of competition, right? A week ago, great victory, and then this past week, a tough loss. That's what competition's all about. That's what life's about. That's how you handle those situations will determine the long run. But I wrote down the list of my guys who are head coaches that I have, that you can kind of be nervous with me as you watch these scores, because they're lesser known guys than Luke. And so Luke's at Wisconsin, and you know, you can root for him other than the Ohio State game. And I don't even know if they play this year, but Marcus is at Notre Dame, PJ Fleck's at Minnesota, so you know, you can root for them other than one game. And Alex Golish used to be a student coach of ours, and he's now the head coach at the University of South Florida. And Stan Drayton's over at Temple, and Brian Wright, who I think is a Stark County guy. Isn't Brian from here? Brian Wright?
Coached at Walsh.
Did he coach at Walsh? He's the head coach at University of Northern Arizona. Mike Jacobs, who some of you might remember, his father, Mike Jacobs, was on Coach Cooper's staff. He's the head coach at Mercer University down in Georgia. Coach Phillips is our head coach over at Youngstown State. Trent Boykin from Kent Roosevelt is the head coach at Hampton University in Virginia. So those are some guys that, you know, you can help me root for. And I had a chance to go back to one of my other old places, which was Syracuse University, where I had a chance to spend 2 days with their new coach. Good young man. He came from Georgia. He was on Kirby Smart's staff, and he's a New Jersey kid, and he's doing a nice job there at Syracuse. They're 2-0. They beat Georgia Tech this past week, and I forget who they beat the opening week, but they're 2-0, and doing a nice job there. And when he invited me to come up and visit with his staff and his team this summer, I took a book that Maury and Katie Basler gave me. Now, is there anyone here old enough to remember Maury and Katie Basler? No? Okay, 1, 2. Man, I remember when everyone remembered them. Katie played the Calliope in the Massillon-McKinley parade every year. Maury had the biggest array of Massillon memorabilia and team photos back into the 1890s. But anyway, he had given me a book about Syracuse football when I became an assistant there, and Charlie Brown signed it. Now, how many of you remember Charlie Brown? The football player. Yeah, Charlie Brown was a great player. I mean, Charlie Brown played at Massillon, played at Syracuse, played, I think, for the Chicago Bears, and great player, great player. And Charlie Brown had signed it because he played at Syracuse, and Ben Schwartzwalder had signed it. How many of you are old enough to remember Ben Schwartzwalder? Okay, we're getting better, we're getting closer. Ben was the longtime head coach at Syracuse. He coached Jimmy Brown and Ernie Davis and Larry Zonka and all the Charlie Brown and all the rest of those guys. And so I had Coach McPherson sign it, who was our head coach. And so I took it back with me, and just like I purged those glasses, I got enough books, so I signed it over to Coach Brown, Fran Brown there at Syracuse, and it was fun getting a chance to visit with them. And I had a chance to spend a couple days out at Iowa State with their staff and team. Matt Campbell, Stark County guy, yeah. And John Haycock is his longtime defensive coordinator, was our defensive coordinator at Youngstown State, and then later the head coach, and got to spend time with them. And I was watching their game last week, going back and forth, and I was, they kick a 54-yarder with 6 seconds to beat Iowa. Ooh, it's always good to beat Iowa, right?
That is a 55-yarder against Marshall.
That was huge, yeah. And then I had a chance to be with our good pals at Baldwin Wallace, where we renewed the rivalry against Wittenberg. Baldwin Wallace and Wittenberg, any of you old enough to remember that rivalry? Okay, good. I don't know if they're so old they can't get the questions. Or it's our first meeting. We're just getting warmed up. Were you serving Bloody Marys over there? But anyway, we renewed the Baldwin Wallace-Wittenberg rivalry. And we had a big reunion on Friday night with all the former BW players and the former Wittenberg players, and we had a great and a good ball game and so forth. And going into the game, the record was 20 wins for Baldwin Wallace, 21 for Wittenberg, and 1 tie. And it's now 21, 1, and 1 because the Yellow Jackets took care of business. So having a chance to get back on campus and visit with them, and I have added to my repertoire that I'm on the Baldwin Wallace Board of Trustees. Any of you old enough to know what a Board of Trustees is? Okay. All right, just didn't get much reaction, Mr. President. I mean, it's a big deal. I get paid nothing. It's one of those great jobs. And the other thing, just on the coaching university front, is Coach Mark D'Antonio, our longtime defensive coordinator at YSU and Ohio State, and then head coach at Michigan State, December 9th goes into the College Football Hall of Fame. How about that? So that was my list of guys that give me the angst about how they're doing and following them, and it is more nerve-wracking to watch your own. It's kind of like you're watching your children or grandchildren play their sports. When you watch your children or whatever coaching, it's like, ooh, it's even more difficult. But one of the things that we decided to do was create a podcast. And I was just talking to Coach Hertler. He said he puts on my podcast to go to sleep at night, which I appreciated. It counts as a listen though for the data. But I was approached that someone said, well, now that you have some time, why don't you do a podcast on leadership? And I said, well, there's 9,000 podcasts on leadership, and I said, but you know, I tell you one that would interest me is if we could do a podcast on team. Because if you think about it, what's really critical if you're going to be successful, whether it's your business or your family or your organization or your athletic team or your state or your nation or whatever, is that we work together and we become a team. And the team becomes more important than the individual. And so I said, well, you know what, we'll be willing to do a little bit of a podcast. We'll try it for a couple months and we'll see if it gets any traction and so forth. And so we started a podcast, and it's called It's All About the Team. And I noticed you set a new rule here today about if you're a member, you got to get all your stuff on Facebook. I couldn't be a member. I have no idea how to do Facebook. But knowing that you made that announcement and everyone seemed to know what you were talking about, I'm sure all of you are on Spotify and YouTube and so forth, that you'll be able to tune into our podcast. It's all about the team. And it's been so much fun learning from our guests. Our inaugural guest episode was John Maxwell, and John Maxwell is a longtime author, and he sold 40, 50 million books. And how many of you are old enough to remember John Maxwell? Not a very well-read group. Okay. Didn't buy one of the 50 million books. You have.
From good to great.
From good, no, that's Jim Collins. You know, I told you he gave me 57 migraines. He's read 5 John Maxwell books, and he calls out one that was written by Jim Collins. Now you know why I got gray. But he was our inaugural guest, and then our second one was A.J. Hawk, and he was fun. And what I've been trying to do is do some of them out on location, some of them in my man cave, but as my wife keeps giving away all my glasses, my man cave won't look as good. But anyway, and then some of them we do remotely. But we had John Maxwell, and then we had A.J. Hawk, and then we had Coach Day, then we had Coach Freeman. I got my list right here. And then we had Nate Ebner. How many of you are old enough to remember Nate Ebner? Oh my gosh, you guys need to get on Spotify and watch this podcast. Nate Ebner's one of the great stories in Ohio State football history. Now, how many of you consider yourself Ohio State fans? Okay, there's a lot. How many of you know what Nate Ebner is? Oh, that's disappointing. That just shows you, TJ, that they don't know the importance of special teams, right?
Most important play of the game.
Most important play of the game. So Nate Ebner never played high school football. He was an outstanding youth rugby player. He was playing national youth rugby and traveling a little bit doing that, and then enrolled at Ohio State and was playing club rugby at Ohio State, but it just wasn't very competitive. And he said to his dad, he said, you know, I think I'm going to walk on the Ohio State football team. And his dad said, yeah, you know what I've taught you, Nate, whatever you set your mind to, you can do it. Well, about a week later, his father was murdered. And they owned a junkyard in the Dayton area, Springfield, Dayton area, and his father happened to be murdered, and all Nate could think about was the last conversation he had with him is that he was going to walk on the Ohio State football team. So he walked on, I think it was 2008 or 9, and made it through the tryouts. He was athletically outstanding, but he'd never played football. And when he began with us in spring practice, we thought, well, let's focus on special teams because it's a one-play series. You don't have to know a whole bunch of different plays and so forth. And well, one thing led to another. got drafted in the 6th round by the New England Patriots. Not having played defensive back much more than in a mop-up duty or something, but he was the best special teams player we had, and played 10 years for the Patriots, won 3 Super Bowls, and one of the years, 2016, he asked Coach Belichick if he could miss training camp to go to the Olympics in rugby. And Coach Belichick said, well, if you make the USA team, you can do it. So he went and trained right after the Super Bowl, started training for rugby, made the team, went to the Olympics, got back to training camp a little bit late into training camp, early season, and ended up that year being all-pro. They won the Super Bowl, and he participated in the Olympics. That's not a bad year. So he had, I think, 10 years with the Patriots, 3 Super Bowl championships, 2 years with the Giants, and he's now going in the next phase of his life. But you talk about a guy who talked about the essence of team. I mean, none of you had ever heard of him, yet his impact was amazing, because that's what a team's about. It's not about everyone, you know, the household names, you know, TJ Downing and things like that. It's about everyone. And so Nate was a great guest. Another tremendous guest we had, and I would encourage you to watch this one if you don't watch any other, and that's General Mary Ann Miller. How many of you know General Miller? Oh my, one person, 2 people. General Miller is the only female in the history of this country to go from being an ROTC student to a 4-star general. She's unbelievable. She was playing softball at Ohio State, and she happened to be in the weight room lifting, and this is back in the late 70s, and Vietnam era, and everyone had long hair and so forth, and she looked at this guy who had a crew cut, and she said, what's up with you? And he said, I'm in ROTC. And they chit-chatted, and he happened to bump in, she happened to bump into him a week later, and he said, you know, you ought to check it out over here. She walked over to ROTC, and whatever happened, she said, this is where I belong, stopped playing softball, and made her way into becoming a 4-star general in the United States Air Force. Incredible. About 5'0", and just the greatest. When she worked at the Pentagon, every Friday afternoon, she'd take her uniform off and she would go into the streets of Washington, D.C. and work with Mother Teresa's Missionaries of Charity. Friday night, Saturday night, all day Sunday, Monday morning, put on her stars back on. And you talk about someone that understands the essence of team, the importance of team. She's now a retired 4-star and involved in a group called Leaven Kids, L-E-A-V-E-N Kids. And it's about meeting 5 to 10-year-olds where they are, specifically in the projects. They create a facility within projects all over the country, and when the kid gets home from school, they've already had correspondence with the school and a folder for the homework that needs to be done, any instructions that the young person needs. They spend the rest of the afternoon with them, they feed them, and then they go to the door of the project and make sure nothing out of the ordinary is going on in that door before they let that young person go home. And she's committed herself to that for the rest of her day. So she's an extraordinary one. She was a great, she was a tremendous guest episode. Mike Peterson, who lives right here in Jackson, was one of our guys. Mike played for us at Youngstown State and went on and was a Canton policeman for a while. And then he moved along and was took over a private investigation type firm and was the compliance person, head of all compliance at Goodyear, and he's currently the chairman of the board of trustees at Youngstown State. He was a great one. Howie Long was a great episode. I had no idea where Howie Long, his story, coming from nothing, living right in Boston under the L train. Incredible story about how team brought him along. Maurice Claret was a great episode. We all know that Maurice had his ups and he had his downs, and he's got ups that are higher than any ups he ever had now. Incredible what he's doing out there in the business world and the nonprofit world. This was a great episode. Cameron Hayward, you might remember. Do you know Cameron? Okay, you got your Steelers jersey on. All right, but Cameron Hayward was a great episode. You talk about a great team guy. And now I think this is his 14th year with the Steelers, and I think it's his 8th or 9th year as captain. I mean, he's just one of those special guys. We had Coach Fickle episode. We had Coach Phillips episode. We had one this past week was Coach D'Antonio, and we just filmed one that you'll want to make sure that you take note. It'll probably be in about 3 weeks, and it was Josh McDaniels, Tom McDaniels, talking about building teams in high school, building teams at the NFL, the ups and downs of coaching, the ups and downs of building teams. It was really a lot of fun to tape. And Nate Ebner, how many of you have heard of Nate Ebner? Let's see if anyone's paying attention now. Okay. Nate Ebner went as a guest host, taking my spot. And he went out to New England and he did an episode, which will be probably in about a month once we cut the rough footage and whatnot, with Matthew Slater. And Matthew Slater was the longtime legendary New England Patriot special teams player right alongside Nate Ebner. And I watched the rough cut of their episode. I mean, not hard to figure out how the Patriots and that organization had such excellence as a team when you listen to Matt Slater and Nate Ebner. And so anyway, we've been kind of having a little bit of fun learning. You know, as soon as you're done learning, you're done. And I've enjoyed learning a lot about how different people, we had a fellow named Mark LaMancha who his whole thing is large-scale 3D printing. And you know, nowadays they're 3D printing highways and houses and, you know, it's amazing what's going on. And his whole conversation in our team episode was about this software system that his people in the foundry, they can know exactly how much they're making at every given moment based upon how efficiently and quickly they're turning out pieces and how few mistakes they make. And they've gotten themselves down to the point where instead of working 4 or 5 8-hour days and producing X, they're working 4 6-hour days and producing 10X because of the team building and the visual earning system. You know, sometimes if you let people know what's out there for them, you give them a visual look. Anyway, his episode was a lot of fun. So that's been an exciting thing for me to sit down and talk to people about, in my mind, what might be the most needed topic of our current times. Because if you think about any of the problems we might have, it might be because sometimes we're not working together as a team. Sometimes we're just worried about, you know, what it's going to do for me individually, and so it's been a thrill talking about that topic and hopefully adding value to people who are trying to build teams and trying to raise the conscious level that really it is all about the team, and the really good organizations understand that. So it's been fun too going on the BW Board of Trustees. It's a little bit though kind of like having nightmares. I was on a Zoom for the first board meeting, and it was like all the stuff we discussed when I was the president of Youngstown State that we needed to get better at, or when I was a vice president at the University of Akron. And so it's kind of fun being able to say, hey, look, we've been there and maybe we should discuss this and here's how we can get better. And so that to me is the fun of it, is to find as many places as possible to see where we can be helpful, to let people know that have blessed us, that, hey, we're here to support and we're here to help. And so it's been a lot of fun, and also having a chance to see grandkids and kids more than you do when you're a coach or a president has been a blessing and a bonus, and getting to see friends and whatnot. And one of my dear friends is not feeling well today. I'm sure you noticed he wasn't here. Gary Spino. That's one of the greatest guys in the world. And I don't know how many of these he's missed, but I'm not going to take it personally, but he's not here. He said he's not feeling good. I don't know if he meant he's heard enough of my baloney, but it's been fun having a chance to be to have the time and the opportunity to get with people that you care deeply about. And so with that, I knew there'd be lots of questions, since you've been waiting all summer long putting your questions together. And plus I can tell that this team is razor sharp right now based upon some of the answers. I've got Coach Hertler.
You did the alma mater after games
I did the alma mater, yep.
at Ohio State. Did you do that at Youngstown? When did you start doing it? Why did you start doing it? And why look around high school and colleges now? Everybody's doing some version of that. When did you start that? Was it at Ohio State or Youngstown? And I don't know if people, I think you're the first guy that did that, personally. I don't know.
I doubt it. You know, a lot of times when they say so-and-so, it's their quote. Chances are their quote they heard from someone else. I don't know who we heard it from or whatever. We didn't do it at Youngstown State. We didn't know our alma mater. That was a problem. We knew our fight song, and we knew if we won the game, we could sing our fight song in the locker room. But you know, I think it started when I first went to Ohio State in 2001, after having been an assistant there in the mid-'80s. One of the things that came to my mind was I had heard about all these traditions at Ohio State, yet I was an assistant coach for 3 years and I didn't experience any of them. You know, I'd heard about the band coming out of the tunnel, and I'd heard about Carmen, Ohio, and I'd heard about the skull session, and I'd heard about this and that, but I'd never seen any of them, and I'd coached there for 3 years. And I thought, well, our players then, if the coaches haven't seen them, our players haven't seen them. So when we got there in 2001, one of the pledges that I made in my mind was that we're going to make sure our guys don't just hear about the traditions, they get to see them. And so when we got there, we went to see Dr. John Woods, who was the band director, great guy. And I said, Dr. Woods, I said, look, I've got a couple ideas. I really want my players to see these traditions and just know that when they hear people talking about them, that they feel it as well. And so I said, I know you have the band in the north end of the closed end of the horseshoe. I said, but you know, I really like the thought of you guys being on the south end, and when we leave to go up the tunnel to our locker room, could we at the end of the game stop and sing the alma mater? Because I'd heard so much about Carmen, Ohio and all that, and then I kind of held my breath because, you know, some people you don't want to change what they do. And he said, no, that's a great idea, let's do that. And so he said, I'll get it arranged, I'll get the band on the south end. And so we went and talked with our team and said, hey, look, whether you like it or not, whether we win or we lose, we are stopping and singing the alma mater, because it's important to the people at this university. It's a tradition, it's special. Well, while we were talking to Dr. Woods, I thought, well, since that was so easy, I said, well, you know, while I got you, how would you feel about if the team came into the skull session? Because again, I've heard of the skull session, but I've never been there. I've heard it's cool. And so I know our players haven't been there. And he said, sure, you know, when you get there, we'll stop and, you know, you can have someone say something, and, you know, He said, just get out of there in about 30 seconds. We got work to do. That's kind of like their practice, their rehearsal before the game. So, we said that that's what we were going to do. And then TJ's freshman year, you were 02, right?
Yes, sir.
Yep. TJ's freshman year, the Blackwell Hotel was built. And so rather than get dumped off from a bus in front of St. John Arena and walk through, we decided we were going to stay there and just walk right over, and that kind of began the walk tradition kind of thing. And but unless your players experience things, it's just hearsay. So I don't know where we got the idea. Like most of our plays, though, we stole them from someone. Right? we watched the film and right, yeah. So I mean, I never invented anything, which is fine. I stole a lot, which is okay. Yes, sir. Or ma'am, I'm sorry. You're on the board, aren't you? How about a hand for our board member? Are you the first young lady on the board?
Yes, I am.
Wow. Okay.
Yes, I am. Okay, I'm dehydrated from a flight in Vegas, but if you can hear me, that's why I'm standing. And I think we should all stand when we ask a question, so you can hear, and you guys can hear. Just my suggestion.
But no, I repeat every question I get. They give me this reminder. Says some of these folks can't hear that well. So repeat the question, and then let's add to it. And if you'd like to stand, go ahead.
I have a comment and a question, a serious question.
Well, you mean the last one wasn't serious?
All right, I'll make you laugh. I can't be as fun as you, okay?
Okay.
We are a Buckeye family. I didn't know how we were a Buckeye family. My oldest son, when Coach Meyer walked in here, I called Brian. You just seen God. I said, Brian Levy. I said, there's only one God. And he was joking, Mom. And if he knew you were here, and I can't wait to show him my picture. But then,
You'd say Satan was here?
I hope not.
No.
Great pastor, he's here, but But anyway, then I met Tim, who I love, and I asked him, if I were from the team up north and that was my school, would you marry me? He said, I'd have to really think about it. Now, my serious question, you can go to any other college in the United States, and you don't have what Ohio State has. Like Brian's comment, Urban Meyer, Coach Meyer, and Brian loves Coach Tressel. Why is it such a big thing? I mean, you don't see that, right, at any other college, but the Ohio State, the Jim Tressel, the Urban Meyer. My son, when Robert was little, he started Ohio State stuff. They've been to the team up north. My dream is to go to the Horseshoe. I went to Penn State and asked him. I had earmuffs on, and I got hit in the head because they were white earmuffs. And they thought I was rooting for Ohio State, and I was making fun of them. I turned around, I said, I'm old enough to be your mother. I said, you could have killed me. So my serious question is, I know Woody Hayes, believe me, Jim's told me, and I love the story of Woody. He went by gas up there. Whenever anybody mentions M, Tim said, you just swore. So honestly, I don't want to take any more time, but why is it such a big thing?
We'll have to answer that next week because it's 1 o'clock. I'm sorry. But
What was the question?
repeat the question. When I met Tim, We got it. We got the question.
I want
So,
to hear it.
why is Ohio State so wonderful? Was that your question? Kind of? Okay. All right, sit down.
Oh, wait.
Okay.
And I love at the Cleveland Indians game when
Okay, let me answer that
they
because
talking about they, the Snoopy song, OH, like,
yeah, hang on,
Can I do
Snoopy.
that?
Yeah,
But seriously, it is awesome.
It is, yep.
And I've never seen that.
Okay, let me answer the question. I think. The question was, what makes Ohio State such an extraordinary place, which it is. You could probably go around the room and a lot of people would tell you that the Ashland University or Baldwin Wallace or Ohio U, there's a lot of University of Akron, there's a lot of folks that have deep belief in their school. I have deep belief in all the places I had a chance to be at. One of the great advantages and one of the great things that makes Ohio State great, I always felt was a huge advantage, was if you go back to the Morrill Act in 1862 and they made land grant schools, they only put one in Ohio. And it's not like Michigan, Michigan State, Iowa, Iowa State, Clemson, South Carolina. You name most of the states, there's two major R1 research universities. Well, we were kind of blessed that for whatever reason, they put one right in the center of the state, and then just about 50 miles to the south, maybe less, 40, they put the one orphanage, which every state at the end of the war had land grant for an orphanage because of all the people we lost in the Civil War and so forth. And it was the singular land grant school to begin with. And so regardless if you went to Baldwin Wallace or Bowling Green or the University of Akron or wherever, still you had some allegiance to Ohio State. I always felt that as the coach at Ohio State, that I knew people went to a lot of other schools and they loved them dearly, but I also knew they were pulling for us. And there wasn't a divided loyalty. And I think it helped in recruiting as well, because you're in every community in the state, 88 counties. There was one land grant school. There was a lot of other great schools, and the right fit for the right person. Ohio State isn't the right fit for everyone, and neither is Baldwin Wallace. But the people that find their fit, that works for them. So I think our greatest advantage was we were the singular, right in the center of the state, land grant school that everyone rallied around from the beginning, 1870, and they've been rallying around ever since. So I think that's one of our great advantages. Next question. Can't top that one? Okay.
I promise I won't be as long as the But I just want to ask you, when we look at the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry, and I still say I set you apart from everybody else, even Urban Meyer, what made that game extra special, not just in terms of on the field, but how you guys prepped for us to succeed every single year against that team? Because, Coach, you set the standard, and Urban just took it a step further. So, how did you do it?
Well, the question was about the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry and how did we approach it and how did we try to succeed in it. And I think, again, growing up in Ohio, knowing that even though I was a Baldwin Wallace fan and grew up there and loved it, and that was what was very important to me, Ohio State was important. And for all 11 million people or whatever it happens to be, regardless of where you find yourself, Ohio State was very important. And I think many of us growing up got the opportunity to see the magic of that 10-year war with Bo and Woody, and it took it to the next level. And it meant so much every year. Usually the Big Ten champion, you know, back in those days you could only go to one bowl. You were either going to the Rose Bowl or going home. And so I think it created that passion, you know, for all of us to want to win that game. And, you know, as we came in back in '01 and looked at the win-loss record, it was, you know, a little bit lopsided toward Michigan. In large part because the first 20 years, I think we were 1-19 or something in 1890 something or whatever. Really after that it was pretty even, like rivalry should be. And so one of the goals that we had was to make sure that every person in the state of Ohio, every alum, every former player, every high school coach, everything knew that we knew that was important, that game. We wanted to make sure that most especially our players knew it. And then we wanted to slowly try to chip away at that overall record. And so, you know, it became a focal point. Not that it wasn't always a focal point, but Coach Schembechler used to always say, you get what you emphasize. And we emphasized that game. And, you know, we'll continue to do that. I've told people before that my goal in life is to live long enough where we're ahead in the rivalry, which, you know, it's single digits, I think, you know, which we need to go on a little bit of a run here because I'm getting a little older. So we can't have any more L's, but it became an emphasis. And thank goodness our players took a hold of that and they committed to understanding the importance and understanding the difficulty of winning that game. I mean, that's not any easy thing. And I think, like anything else, I think what your own children want from the parents is for you to help them understand the difficulty of what they're going to face in life and prepare them, right? Well, that's what players want from a coach. Tell us the difficulty of what we're trying to accomplish and prepare us for it. And that's what we set out to try to do. No, you don't get a second one.
One more question.
One more question from the Hall of Famer.
Coach, just want to get your thoughts on NIL.
I thought I was going to get out of here.
Is it helping or hurting, and how has it changed the recruiting game today?
Whew. The question was
I have a better comment.
the NIL. You might have a short tenure on this board if you don't mind. So anyway, the question was, what's the effect of NIL on the game, recruiting, all the rest? And, you know, like most things, decisions that were made well in advance affected what was inevitably going to happen, okay? So, unfortunately, as revenue started skyrocketing in college athletics, decisions were made not to share it. Well, when you make decisions that probably aren't fair, equitable, eventually you're going to pay the fiddler. And it exploded. And now the decisions that were made at the higher levels are totally out of control. They have no control over anything now instead of having total control. And so I think for the moment, the NIL and the whole transfer portal and all that thing are going to be very disruptive. I hope we get some people in the room that understand that there needs to be a balance of things, that for years we should have been helping the young people with the revenue and not just paying the coaches and the athletic departments and all that. And I hope we get some people in the room to decide what are the desired outcomes for collegiate athletics, and how are we going to equitably create a system that we can back up in court, because right now they are 0 for whatever in court, and that's why they've lost total control. So yes, I think it's affecting, unfortunately, like many things, the rich will get richer, not unlike society, right? When certain decisions are made, the rich get richer, and so for the Ohio States of the world, I don't think the NIL or the portal will be a negative thing. For a lot of people, it's going to be hard on them. You know, I'd like to think that we could find the people to make good decisions as to how to reimagine intercollegiate athletics so that the 450,000 student athletes every year, that the focus is learning on what are the values of being a part of a sport, understanding team and discipline and handling adversity and hard work, and not simply how much money can I make. And so we'll see, but I think it's going to be disruptive for a few years, and it's going to take it'll take some various paths, because when anything starts, people get gung-ho about it, and they start throwing all this money in there and so forth. People will get tired of throwing money at it as well, and the other things will get affected. I'm worried about other sports not being funded. I'm worried about other levels being impacted other than the top ones. So it's a challenging time, but I would like to believe within the next 4, 5, 6 years we could come up with a better plan than we have now. So with that, thanks so much. Have a great fall.